India remains the world's fastest major growing economy, but with global uncertainties and a tectonic shift in trade policy here in the United States, how much of a hit could India take? To answer that question, we're joined by Silicon Valley legend and former CISCO CEO John Chambers, who's been a long-time champion for India. John Chambers, thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV.
Stuart, it's a pleasure to be with you again. But you know my rules on this one. Please call me John. I form friendships for life, and we'll call each other formally as we both get older.
All right.
All right. This will be fun.
Thank you. So John, very first question here. Many times in the past, you've talked about this being India's decade, this being India's century. India is going to grow to be the largest economy in the world. India has grown thanks to globalization, doing business with its largest trading partner here in the US. But given what you've seen in the last few months, has that outlook changed now?
Well, I think the important thing on the big trends in the world, and I have a lot of weaknesses, but I get market transitions right enabled by technology and leadership. And on those big issues, India's future has not changed at all. In terms of my confidence in the country. Will there be some bumps along the way? Of course. Will there be some bumps on the way in front of the US? Yes. But in terms of my confidence in India, I was at the Milton Conference, a major financial conference for worldwide investors just a month ago down in LA. And I was there a year ago, and I reminded them of my comments then, and people followed it very closely. I think it is India's year, India's decade, and India's century. Now, this is about execution. Doesn't mean if we misexecute, it won't happen. But the trends and every prediction I made on India, and they call me the biggest optimist on India, the biggest bull on India, have been true more than that over the last 8 years, including back in 2017, when there was a lot of questions what was going on. I said India will be the fastest growing economy in the world and potentially the largest. And here we are.
But people might say the problem is not with India, it's what's happening with the US, with its tariffs, the trade policy. Is that going to jeopardize that forecast?
In the long run, the US and India will be the most strategic partners. You saw that in the meeting with Prime Minister Modi and President Trump in February. They greatly respect each other. They're both very, very strong leaders. Both of them believe in the vision of our countries working together and it being the most strategic in the world, and they will navigate through that. Now, there are uncertainties in front of us, of course. I waste very little time worrying about next month or next quarter. I focus, where's it going to be 1-3 years out, make the big bets, and use period of uncertainty is when you break away.
All right. In 2024 in February, when you did an interview with NDTV Profit, you were asked about what could potentially put a strain on US-India relations and its strategic partnership. Your response was, if we become selfish and look internally, that will be a problem. Isn't the US now looking internally and we have a problem now?
Well, I love the question, and you know, having done this for 35 years, I'm going to reframe your question to the one that I want to answer. And the answer is every country must do what's fair for itself. And the US in many ways have been in a very unfair trading positions with many of the players around the world for quite a while. And to focus on how do you create a win for yourself and a win for the other country is the right way to go. And basically, we often look what is right for me first and what's right for my partner second. I think on the US-India relationship, we framed this since candidly Prime Minister Modi came into power. The first meeting I had with him, we talked about what could this relationship really mean. And so I think there will be times when we might have disagreements, or some people might say we're looking a little bit more internal than we should be. I think you have to understand what motivates the other side, and usually there's very good logic behind it. And don't let these bumps get in the way of the bigger picture. Are we going to navigate through this? Absolutely yes. And contrary to what everybody is talking about, I believe India will be the first or one of the very first substantive agreements, interim and then longer term trade agreement. Both countries will do very well in this relationship.
But this is different, isn't it? For example, we're having the trade talks right now between the United States and India. There's talk that it might be extremely close. We've seen what happened in the last few days with the trade court putting Trump's tariffs on hold, but of course there was that stay on that, so Trump could continue collecting tariffs as he was. The question here is, as India tries to make this deal with the United States, what should it be doing at this point in time? Should it be stalling? Should it be waiting to get more clarity?
If you make the mistake of trying to reflect on each transaction in today's very uncertain world, or political issues, or economic, or perhaps even terrorist issues, or issues in the Ukraine, etc., you're not going to position yourself for the long run. You do what is right for both countries long run. You navigate through the short term. And we'll navigate through these current issues. I don't think either side's trying to inappropriately take advantage of the other. Both sides are trying to say, how do we get a good deal that our constituents will know and that is a win? This is probably the best time for India to negotiate a deal with the US ever.
You see India becoming 90% bigger than China's economy and 30% bigger than the US economy at some point in time.
Yes.
Wondering, where is that growth going to come from? Is it going to come from manufacturing? Is it going to come from services? Is it going to come from your favorite, artificial intelligence?
I think you're going to see it in every industry. If you watch and use your last example of artificial intelligence will be the fabric, the foundation for every industry, whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's finance, whether it's insurance, whether it's consultancy, etc. within it. So AI goes everywhere. And in that, you're going to probably see productivity gains of 7 to 10% by most companies. You do that productivity gain wise, and you realize how fast standard of living could increase in terms of the opportunities here.
Trying to get a sense from you what you think about the business environment right now. You've been the CEO of CISCO for 20 years. During that time, you took the company from 1 billion to nearly 50 billion. You saw it all: global recessions, wars, regime changes, whatnot. How would you categorize the environment like right now? And if I could get you to perhaps liken it perhaps to a Category 1 storm, a Category 5 storm, with Category 5, of course, being hurricane, force winds, and so on.
Yeah, I like your comparison. I'll use a different category, but I answer the question very, very similar. There are many similarities toward both economic upturns and downturns and technology and upturns and downturns. It's important to understand during every downturn, guess which industry led their countries out of it? Technology companies. Every downturn, the technology companies came out of it in total stronger than they went in. That's going to be true this time, especially with AI. In terms of speed and nimbleness and results of outcomes, good or bad, you're probably moving at 5 times the speed of what we saw with the internet, which was a major disruption, and probably 3 times the outcomes of the internet. So in terms of the tremendous power of this opportunity, it's the biggest one ever by a factor of 3 to 5.
You run a successful venture capital firm now. You've invested into a whole bunch of startups. About, correct me if I'm wrong, 40% of them are now unicorns, which means $1 billion and over.
A little bit older. It's 12 of them are one decacorn rubric.
Okay.
That last evaluation might be 20 billion.
All right.
And they went public just a year and a half ago. They were one of the 7 companies that did, one of the most successful that have done in the U.S. high tech. So I've been very lucky on it, but I also build relationships and trust. And I'm pretty good at picking people and the market trends.
Talking about going public, right? Given the market fluctuations right now, for many of these unicorns, the next step would be at least mulling when they could list. So given we've seen these highs, these lows with the stock market, what's the appetite, do you think, for IPOs?
I think it's going to be tough. First, let me give a compliment to India. India, if you're looking back over 24 and 23, it accelerated its IPOs. You saw it, a different presence. Did a very good job for the last 5 years, 6 years before that on unicorns, and then before that startups, unicorns, IPOs, they go in that sequence. And today's market, money is hard to raise for even established venture capital private held companies, even tougher in the IPO market. So originally, almost a year and a half ago, there was 200 plus companies that wanted to go IPO. Only a handful did. And only a handful of that handful were successful on it. So I think that's going to stay tough till we get the economy a little bit more predictable on it, and investors can weigh the trade-off in growth versus the investments.
When do you see those headwinds blowing over?
I think most likely the second half of this year is going to be very telling. How we exit 2025 will be very indicative of that. I said originally I thought M&A activity and IPOs and VC would pick up in the second half of the year. That's now a little bit more uncertain. I still think it will by the end of the year. But again, my strategy doesn't change. I'm going to use a very similar strategy, which way it goes. Very tight on expenses, very high on productivity, pick the winners very carefully, and position to win regardless of whether this turnaround comes in 6 months or 2 years.
Let's talk a little bit about talent in the US and how that affects India as well. We've seen President Donald Trump with a very unique immigration policy that some people say has targeted international students. For example, a few days ago, we had the Trump administration stopping visa interviews for students as it expands its social media vetting policy. Students feel targeted. There are several that we've spoken to who are saying that they're having second thoughts about coming to the United States. How much of that is going to affect talent in the US and also in India, because these students, so to speak, won't be able to learn from the best of the best?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge believer in America attracting the best and the brightest. That has never changed. My technology counterparts agree unanimously on that. India produces 1.2 million engineers a year. We produce 60,000. For us to achieve the technology leadership on our own, and even more importantly on our own with India as our partner, we have to attract talent in this country. At the same time as we attract talent, we've got to understand what are the issues with the students and which ones are coming to be part of our culture and direction long term. So I think long term, you'll see the US and India work through the issues on visas and citizenships.
What's the outlook for the India-US partnership in the next 10 years?
That's a great question. I love it. What would be my press release 10 years from now? And we might do a status update 3 years from now or 5. I think we will have once again shown my very optimistic view of what's possible with a high probability I was too conservative again. I do not underestimate we can mess it up, and I do not underestimate there be maybe geopolitical issues which are unforeseen at the present time. But I think you'll see the two largest democracies, the oldest and the largest democracies, come closer and closer together. I think we'll learn to collaborate in every area imaginable in a win-win fashion. And in a win-win, it doesn't mean it's always 50-50. Sometimes you as my partner get 70, I get 30. Other times I might get 80, you get 20. But we'll learn how to navigate through that. It will be the defining partnership for the century. And I think when we started first saying that was possible 8 years ago at US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, people said, John, you've got most of your predictions right. I think you've missed this one. I think actually I was too conservative. I hope in 10 years you'll see that rough cut of a press release be actually too conservative again.
John Chambers, a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV.
My pleasure. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.